It's time again for the Insiders with Chuck Chvala and Scott Jensen, sponsored by the Wisconsin Counties Association and the Tommy G. Thompson Center on Public Leadership.
Hi, I'm Chuck Chvala, former Senate Majority Leader.
And I'm Scott Jensen, former Assembly Speaker.
And we're the Insiders. So, Scott, at the national level, the South barely by one vote passed their budget reconciliation idea and went over to the Senate. But Ron Johnson of Wisconsin says, no. We need to have more cuts in spending, and which is something that's getting the Republicans a lot of heat. Where do you see that headed? Is Rojo going to be successful?
Well, I think he's actually partially successful. I mean, if you take a look at it, this has been why Ron Johnson ran for office in the first place. He ran, he was a Tea Party candidate in 2010. He ran for office to straighten out the federal government's finances. He was a businessman. He was going to make this thing happen. And then when he got there, I think he found out, ooh, this is a lot harder to do than it would be for a business person, right? You've got to get everybody else on the same page. It's extraordinarily difficult. There's big momentum behind the spending for these programs. And he now sees this is probably his best shot to ever get the sort of changes that he has long wanted. So he pulled on the brake, brought the whole thing to a stop, got several other people on his side, and has been able to, I think, get people to focus on, are there some spending cuts that can be made, additional spending cuts that can be made here? I think Americans are frustrated, right? That it doesn't matter who's president. The deficit just gets worse. The national debt just seems to get worse, despite the pledges of Republicans or of Democrats that they're the one who's going to get this done. And so Ron Johnson's the latest to step up and say, I think I can make a difference here. And I think they're going to have to do something. Now, luckily, he's smart to focus on some of the DOGE cuts. I mean, I think there's some things in there that are not in, obviously, the area of entitlement spending, which is sort of something the president has said he doesn't want to touch. So hopefully they can come up with some things. But he's got this problem in that bill passed the House by one vote. Odds are the best they can do in the United States Senate is they got a 3-vote margin. You're going to ask people to make difficult decisions and somehow hang on to all of those individual votes. And if you start taking out people's projects or other things, you're going to be losing votes, not gaining votes. So I think he's looking in the right area. It's a noble effort on his part. I think it's another sign that this is probably his last term here. He sees his last big moment to try to make a difference at the federal level. Maybe he comes up with $50 to $100 billion worth of cuts that they can put in the bill to get it through both houses. But the one thing he can't do is tip it over, right? He can't prevent the passage of that Reconciliation Act, or all the rest of the Republican agenda goes down with it.
And that's why I'm questioning whether he'll have much success at all. Can he find $50 billion worth of cuts? Yes. Is it a rounding error when it comes to the federal, not just the debt, but even the deficit? It's a rounding error. It really is just minuscule. They're talking about Republicans who only seem to care about the debt and the deficit when Democrats are in charge. They're talking about increasing the debt over the next 10 years, somewhere between 3 trillion and $5 trillion. That's trillion with a T, not billions with a B. And the reality is here that already we've seen that the cuts that are being made are going to cost, 8 to 10 million people their health insurance and maybe more. I think any additional cuts are only going to be more burdensome on those people running. I think Scott's insight may be a good one here that was kind of just only briefly mentioned. This may be Ron Johnson's last hurrah, and he's not going to run for reelection. And frankly, he's not in a good position running for reelection if Republicans pull these kinds of stunts. These cuts, which are going to cost millions of people their health insurance that are already made, I think are already going to be too much for the Republicans to be able to pull through. But will he hold out for this? Yes. But, are there enough Republicans? As Scott points out, they have a 3-vote margin, but remember, they have the presidency. So if it's 50-50, which is if you lost 3 senators, you still have the vice president who can cast the vote to pass this, which I'm sure he would love to do. So I really wonder if Ron Johnson is going to be successful in this. And if he is successful in it, I think it will be more symbolic in the range of the 50 billion that Scott mentioned, as opposed to something serious. Like a real serious person looking at this would say, I'm going to find a way that we're not going to have a negative impact on the debt at all over the next 10 years. That's not what he's talking about.
Yeah, and no one's been able to deliver that. I don't believe since the 90s,
Clinton's.
since the
Bill
90s.
Clinton delivered balanced budgets, and of course, Democrats, including Peter Barca, good friend of mine, one of the greatest public servants ever, gave up his job because he would vote for the budget that would be balanced. And of course, no good deed goes unpunished. And there it is.
Well, some people would give the Republican Congress some credit for that as well. But that's essentially the moment we have here is, are we going to go back and try to get the finances back in shape, or are we just going to keep pushing it down, kicking the can down the road? And I think Ron Johnson's going to try to see if he can stop that, but the odds are pretty small.
I think that's a fair insight. We'll see you next time, folks.
You've been listening to The Insider with Chuck Chvala and Scott Jensen, sponsored by the Wisconsin Counties Association and the Tommy G. Thompson Center on Public Leadership.